Should the San Francisco 49ers be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? We're going to get into it because obviously there have been some insane trades to go down this morning. Going to have a little reaction to Amari Cooper on the move and Devontae Adams on the move. And again, it's got me thinking, who could the 49ers go out and get potentially? Or are they not even going to be buyers? Should they be sellers? Should they be punting? Curious to get your take on that. We also had a roster move that popped off right before this got started. So we are going to discuss all those things right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, let's get into it. Let's get to our roster move here. And let's get to that first, shall we? But as you guys know, the 49ers will be playing the Chiefs this weekend at Levi's Stadium. If you guys are going to that game, make sure you're tapping in with TickPick, no hidden fees, best prices in the game. And if you use the code SF9ers through the app, you will also get an additional $25 off your purchase. So make sure if you guys are going to the game this weekend, tap in with TickPick, use a promo code, and get an additional $25 off. But you have to do it through the app. Get it in with TickPick, baby. But let's talk about the 49ers roster move, and then we will talk about if the 49ers should be buyers or should be sellers at the deadline. So the 49ers have signed Adrian Amos to the practice squad. I wonder if this will have any type of indication of what Malik Mustafa and his availability will be like this week. Obviously, the 49ers are already down Talanoa Hufanga, who is on injured reserve. And when you look at the 49ers safety depth right now, you obviously have Jair Brown, George Odom, Jalen Mahoney is on the practice squad. They now go and add Adrian Amos to their practice squad. And this reminds me of when they signed Tashaun Gibson. Obviously, when Tashaun Gibson was signed, it wasn't really like ooh, this is a crazy signing. It was like, all right, 49ers went out and they got veteran depth. Well, Tashaun Gibson turned out to be a 2-year starter for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I'm not saying at all that's what Adrian Amos is, but you're talking about a guy with a ton of experience, who's played on a lot of teams, who's ready to come in and be potentially an impact, maybe even this week, depending on the status of Malik Mustafa. 664 tackles throughout his career, 49 passes deflected, and 10 interceptions. The guy has played a lot of football. He has over 8,456 snaps logged throughout his career. So this is a guy who's seen a lot of ball. And although he's, kind of at the tail end of his career, he's 31 years old. And obviously he wasn't on a roster when the 49ers added him to the practice squad. There is a good chance that he's still got a little ball left in him, and he could potentially be a guy that the 49ers rely on. We'll have to see, but they have been injured at the safety position, so we'll have to figure out what's going on with that. But again, they get a guy, ton of experience. I remember Amos very well from when the 49ers and Packers were going back and forth, 2019 through 2022. So I remember him well. I thought he was a decent player, might not be the best player ever, but I do think he's quality depth, and we'll see. We'll see what that ultimately looks like moving forward. Let's react a little bit to the Davante Adams and Amari Cooper trades that went down today. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, and then we'll transition this into the 49ers conversation about who we think maybe the 49ers should go after, or if you think the 49ers should trade some guys away. Listen, I'm of the buyer mentality. I do think that the 49ers should be buyers. I do think they should continue to be adding to this roster, even though they are 500, they are first in the NFC West, and the NFC is wide open. So I do think that you want to continue to add talent. But I did pull YouTube, and only 85% said yes. There was a 15% vote that said the 49ers should be sellers. So, hey, there are some people out there. They might not be the majority, but there are people apparently out there that do believe that the 49ers should be sellers at the deadline. So we'll talk about all the different options. But Davante Adams going to the to the Jets to reunite with Aaron Rodgers. It definitely feels a little bit like a desperation move. I mean, you got to credit the Jets. They got a great deal. They had a conditional third that will be a second if Davante Adams either gets, I think it was first or second team all pro, or they make it to the AFC Championship. So in any of those events, if those things were to occur, that third round pick would switch over to a second round draft pick. But at the end of the day, that's really not that much, and they didn't have to pay any of his salary. It sounds like the Raiders picked up, all the contractual situations of that. So the Raiders just not a good trade for the Raiders. Better trade for the Jets. Low risk, and they get a high quality player. It's just I don't know if that's going to be enough to get the Jets over the hump. Obviously, they feel a little bit desperate right now. So I think it's probably a better situation for Davante Adams. He goes to a quarterback that he knows well, and they're at least fighting in the AFC to stay relevant. So that one's interesting. The one that I thought was like, and I don't think that was much of a surprise. Like, I think we were kind of waiting for Davante to get traded to the Jets. It seemed like a foregone conclusion. It felt like we were just waiting for that to happen. So not as surprised about that one. The one that surprised me was Amari Cooper going to the Bills from the Browns. That one I was like, oh, Bills got better on that one. I felt like that's a trade where the Bills were able to identify a position of need. Obviously, they lose Stephon Diggs. They lose Gabe Davis. They have Khalil Shakir. They literally just released Marquez Valdes-Scantling in a corresponding move to bring over Amari Cooper. So they're already making moves. They've got Keon Coleman, but just again, I think he's just too green. He's just a rookie. Can't really be relied on. They have obviously Dalton Kincaid as well as options. I thought their running back Ray Davis looked phenomenal last night, and they obviously have Josh Allen. They got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You get him with a weapon, with a known separator in Amari Cooper. That definitely helps. That helps the whole Bills offense. Like I got Dalton Kincaid. And I'm waiting for the Kincaid to explode a little bit. I feel like this Amari Cooper move helps the rest of the offense. It helps it gives an outside threat that teams are going to have to key on. And now that's going to be able to open up, get different coverages to shift around, maybe pull safeties away from Kincaid, and maybe you're getting more one-on-one coverage on Khalil Shakir, and maybe opening up running lanes. So I think that was a phenomenal move. I thought the Bills did a good job. Bubba says, why aren't you talking about the Niners? Because just like I said, I was going to react to the trades that went down this morning that are going to then transition us into the trade conversation. And the title of this particular show is Should the 49ers be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline? Because that's got everyone energized up. Those are the trades that got 49ers fans buzzing on who and if the 49ers should go after a trade. And Bubba, I think you provided us with our natural transition into should the 49ers be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. Let me know in the comments because, like I said, I ran a poll on YouTube. Surprisingly, 15% voted that the 49ers should be sellers. So I'm just curious. We throw it out there. You answer the question 49ers buyers or sellers at the deadline. You let me know. Light up the chat. Let me see what you guys are thinking because it might be time for due diligence season. Might be time to bring out Mr. John Lynch himself, pick up the phone and potentially see who is available and see who you could potentially add to this team. Because I do think that the 49ers are just picking up momentum at the right time. I really do. I really, really do. Bubba says buy. Buy. I love it. Buyers, because we won't get much for some of the players fans think we will, and we'll be moving off a few next offseason. Buyers. I'm seeing some seller. B. Lauren wants to see some changes. Buy. Oh, there's a sell. JC says sell. Oh, JC wants to see Debo out. Ooh, boy. I think we do know that this could be could be Debo's last season, not for sure or not on that, but it could be just based on how the contract looks, and we'll see if it actually is. That's an interesting thought. B. Lauren says overall sell, but only buy good. I mean, I do agree on Earth why you only want to buy good. We only want to buy the good. We don't want to buy any of that Reggie for sure. Buy the cap is fake. I'm starting to believe that. Buy. Don't sell Debo. We need that guy. I mean, I agree. I think we need Debo at this point. I definitely think we've needed Debo, and I think the version of Debo that we got against Seattle is exactly what the doctor ordered. So I don't know if I would want to trade Debo. I feel like Debo's a captain. Debo plays a big role in this team. I don't think I'm not buying that one. I think we ride into the sunset with Debo, and whatever happens at the end of the year, I think happens because I think we need an all hands on deck type of scenario. I could understand maybe why that's a thought process because of we don't really know what the future holds, and he could be someone that is on the outside looking in when it's all said and done at the end of the year. However, you would be selling Debo kind of at a rental price. I don't know. Unless you're getting significantly younger and you're getting a just as talented player, that feels like a hard one to justify. So I don't know about selling Debo just yet. I can understand the thought process behind it. I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. But I do think, like, as you can see, it's not all buy. You can see some of the people in the chat are willing to sell. And now you can be buyers and sellers. You can be both. I think that's also an important distinction to make, is that you can actually go out and obtain talent, and you can move some guys. So that is possible. And we do know that the 49ers have explored trades with players in the past. We heard that they approached Mike McGlinchey in the final year of his contract, and they were going to shop him around, and they were going to see what they could get. They ultimately didn't trade him. They definitely have those conversations. And I really do think if you're in the final year of your deal, is kind of where they will be looking at you. Like if they don't think that they're going to extend you long term, that might be where they become sellers. But I would say, um, I would say predominantly the 49ers have been buyers, though. I would say they typically we haven't seen too many guys traded. I mean, you chat might have to help me out here, because I'm trying to think of guys we've traded away within the last 5, 7 years. There's really not a ton that's coming to my mind. I know we traded for guys just last year like Chase Young, and we traded for guys. Don't need to remind me about Buckner. I think my mind was trying to protect me from the Buckner trade. We traded Jeff Wilson. That's a good one. Yes, we did trade Trey Lance. We added guys like Randy Gregory. We added Charles Omenihu. We added Emmanuel Sanders. We've added guys. We have also traded guys. That's very true. Good point by Invader. That trade wasn't during the season. I agree with that. So it will be interesting to see if the 49ers actually move off of any players. I feel like just where the roster is currently at, you know, I think they're buyers more so than sellers. I thought that maybe Elijah Mitchell, if they felt comfortable with Jordan Mason, and obviously we saw them draft Isaac Garendo, that if Elijah Mitchell was healthy, that maybe he could be someone that the 49ers look to move mid-season. But he's obviously on IR, so I don't think he can be traded. But so when we get into the buyer conversation, who do we think that the 49ers should target? Because I do think that there are some holes. Obviously, we saw the 49ers just add safety depth in the form of Adrian Amos. You look at the defensive line depth, you've seen that Javon Hargrave is out for the season. You see that Yetur Gross-Matos goes on to IR. Obviously, Dre Greenlaw's down. Malik's a little banged up. So who do the 49ers go out and who do they trade for? Who are some names that you would like to see? The most popular name I think I've seen has been Max Crosby. And although I love that idea, I don't see it being much of a reality. I would love to see Max Crosby and Nick Bosa get after the quarterback. Are you kidding me? Could you imagine that? Or even a situation where you kick Max inside and you have Leonard Floyd on the outside, you get real crazy with it. You start throwing some stunts. You got Max Crosby coming around on a loop. You got Leonard Floyd crashing inside. You get all these games and movements. Crosby and Bosa would be nuts, but I don't know if I could necessarily see it happening, because although, like I said, I like the idea of it. If we're playing Madden, I'm gonna try to make that trade. I don't see the Raiders playing ball with the 49ers. We went down this road before when Khalil Mack was available. The 49ers were very aggressive in trying to get Khalil Mack. John Lynch even went out as far as saying that the 49ers offered a better trade for Khalil Mack, better compensation for Khalil Mack than the Bears offered, and the Raiders refused because at that time, the Raiders and the 49ers shared the Bay Area. Obviously, the Raiders aren't in the Bay anymore. But I still think that history is there. I don't think Mark Davis likes the Raiders, or excuse me, likes the 49ers. You can make the argument Mark Davis doesn't like the Raiders either. You can make the argument he just likes money. In all seriousness, I don't know if Mark Davis pulls that trigger. Even if the 49ers gave him a deal, I don't know if he does it. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. I think Mark Davis would say we'll trade Max Crosby to a lot of places, except the 49ers. So I don't know if that's going to go down, but it's a very popular name that I've seen popping around. Hey, if you're John Lynch, right, you pick up the phone, you can make the call. That's the worst that they could say is no. I would say that it is interesting that the 49ers did attempt to get a player from the Raiders this offseason. It was reported, I believe, by Mike Silver. I could be misassociating the credit to, but I do remember a report came out that the 49ers were attempting to trade for Jacoby Myers, wide receiver for the Raiders. I believe they were trying to offer up a seventh. They were declined. So there were conversations apparently that were had. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means they would be willing to have those conversations. But I'm just going to go ahead and say Raiders best player to the 49ers. I don't know. I don't know about that. It's a good thought. I like the idea of it. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. So let's look at some other names that you guys have popped into the chat here. Let me go back into the chat. Ojulari. Oh yeah. Now you're talking my language. We're talking Azeez Ojulari. For those who don't know, back in 2021, the Azeez Ojulari hive was buzzing. I freaking loved Azeez Ojulari. Credit to Jordan Elliott for putting me on game. He was the first person to be like, yo, Brad, check out this guy, Azeez Ojulari. He showed me Azeez Ojulari, and I went stupid. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Azeez Ojulari, he's that guy. I loved his speed off the edge. I thought his hands were absolutely phenomenal. The way that Azeez can beat tackles to the corner, phenomenal. 6'3", about 240 pounds, phenomenal athlete. And you saw it on display this weekend. Kayvon Thibodeaux was hurt. So Azeez Ojulari got a lot of run against the or for the Giants when he typically doesn't, because he's playing behind Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux. But when you put in Azeez Ojulari against, I believe it was the Cincinnati Bengals, Azeez Ojulari had a 23.1 pressure percentage versus the Bengals. To put that in perspective, that was the third best last week, only behind Nick Bosa and Max Crosby. So Azeez Ojulari, he is in my opinion, he's a high-end pass rusher. Now, I don't look at him as like a big base down guy, a guy that you really want in the run game. But when it comes to getting after the quarterback, Azeez Ojulari's been one of my favorites since he came out of Georgia. His bend, his speed, his hands, love it. Love it. You guys know that I'm obsessed with speed off the edge. I'm trying to get elite speed rushers to line up on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. If you could go out and get Azeez Ojulari, who is in his final year of his rookie contract, which means you would be kind of trading for a rental, but it would give you the opportunity to potentially extend him for either maybe a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract, 3-year contract, depending on what you want to see. I don't think that there's a world that Azeez comes in and plays so well that you have to pay him some insane amount. But let's say he does play so well, he accumulates 8 sacks for the 49ers and he signs a big contract elsewhere. You're still getting a compensatory pick. So if you could somehow get Azeez Ojulari for a third round draft pick, I really do think that you could not only angle to keep him beyond next year when his rookie deal is up, but you could also potentially recoup a compensatory pick if he does have success and he signs elsewhere and he is a true rental. So I think there's a lot of positives that come along with trying to go after Azeez Ojulari. I feel like he played himself potentially out of getting traded just last week. He played really, really well for the Giants against Cincinnati. So I don't know. I don't know how eager the Giants would be to get rid of him, but I think that is all dependent on if they plan on signing him. So if they don't plan on re-signing Azeez, then they should absolutely try to trade him, whether to the 49ers or someone else. J.C. Horn or Paulson Adebo, those aren't bad names. The Panthers are an interesting one. Same scenario with JC Horn is I'm not sure if he is a free agent at the end of this year. I'm looking it up really quickly. I'm not seeing his name. So I don't think he's a outright free agent next season. So that one could be interesting. Ifitu Melifonwu, except the Detroit Lions aren't trading us him, so that's not happening. Paulson Adebo, I really liked coming out of Stanford as well. He's really turned into a good cornerback. I don't know if either one of those up are on the trade block, but wouldn't hurt making the call. Myles Garrett, shoo. I wonder if the Browns are in selling mode. I wonder if the Browns are in full-fledged, let's burn it all down to the ground. We're kind of stuck with Deshaun. Let's go out. Let's sell assets. I don't know. Their defense is they still got a quality defense. It feels like if you trade Myles Garrett, you're trading away the soul of your team. I don't know if they're quite ready for that yet. Khalil Herbert, another draft crush of mine. I'd be down for that. He's kind of like third fiddle, I think, behind Swift, Roschon Johnson. He's a good zone runner. He would be a good depth piece. He would be a guy that you just want to hold on to for depth. But I do think Isaac Rendo, Patrick Taylor, Jordan Mason all showed a lot of promise. And it'll be interesting if the 49ers do trade for running back depth. I think that would be more indicative of where Christian McCaffrey currently stands. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Come on wants to see a defensive lineman or a linebacker added. Special teams. We signed another kicker today. I forgot about that. We didn't even talk about that yet. We signed another kicker today to the practice squad. 2 former Packers signed today. Defensive tackle could definitely be in the cards. Obviously, I love getting as much edge help as possible. But interior defensive tackle could definitely be someone. I'm wondering who a realistic interior defensive tackle could be. Realistically, Conklin from the Browns, Harris from the Browns, Ojulari from the Giants. Let's see. What are some other names that you guys dropped into the chat? I'm a little behind. Reddick? Yeah. I don't know. I feel I definitely not willing to mess with that. He seems I mean, the fact that his own representation fired him, I'm okay off that. All right, we got an unrealistic list from SD. I like the realistic list and the unrealistic one. He says Simmons, I would love that. Simmons would be fire. Lawrence would also be really nice. Crosby would be nice. Garrett would be nice. Allen would be nice. These would all be nice. I think out of this list, obviously Crosby would be at the top, but I think Jeffrey Simmons would be right there. Garrett would also be at the top. I think you got to tilt towards edge. Josh Allen, he's up there too, but I think, man, if you were able to get Jeffrey Simmons, whoo, dude, that takes me back to the 2020 draft, because my Galaxy brain move was you either trade back for CeeDee Lamb or you trade back for Justin Jefferson. You use those picks to trade back up into the bottom of the first and trade Jeffrey Simmons. That was my Galaxy brain 2020 draft day trade. The trade back would have more aligned with Justin Jefferson from 13 to down. But I really love Justin Jefferson. Not Justin Jefferson. I did love him. But Jeffrey Simmons coming out, and we knew we needed a defensive tackle, and felt you could have moved up into the bottom of the first and taken Jeffrey Simmons. That was my Galaxy brain idea. Would have been phenomenal. But we got Kinlaw out of that, and we got Brandon Ayuk. Let me catch up to some of these names that you guys are dropping in the chat. You guys are dropping too many for me to keep up with. I see a lot of Crosby. A lot of Crosby. Oh, this one's not. This is, I think, a realistic. We already talked about Shelby Harris, but Calais Campbell as well. Calais is 38 years old, so you're not trading for a spring chip. You are trading for someone who has obviously a lot of definitely long in the tooth, but he's a big body. He can help stuff the run, and he automatically brings leadership to the locker room. Calais Campbell could be an option, but I think the Falcons are trying to compete, so I don't know. I don't know if they would do that. I don't know if they would. They could. I don't know if they would. Let's see. Dalvin Tomlinson. You probably get him for somewhat of a value. Grady Jarrett. I have a hard time seeing them trading him. I know he is a foundational piece for them, and he's very expensive. I know DJ Jones. I'm surprised it took so long to see DJ Jones' names popped up. I know whenever we talk about potentially trading for defensive line depth, I do know that DJ Jones' names was one of the first names that gets thrown around. That would be an interesting one. Myjai Sanders, I do agree, is young, athletic edge. He would be an interesting one. I don't know how much of an impact he would make early on, but I do think he would provide good depth for sure. Emmanuel Ogbah, I haven't heard his name for a while. BJ Hill, I like the BJ Hill one. I was a big fan of BJ Hill coming out. I think he came out of NC State, if I'm not mistaken. I thought he had a lot of talent for an interior defensive tackle, and he was wrecking havoc this last week. I saw a couple pass deflections that he had. Seemed like he was still getting active. So BJ Hill, yeah, I like that name. That's a name I would mess with. Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals. He seems like he would be expensive. He seems like a guy that would definitely cost a good amount to go and get because he still looks like he's got a lot left in the tank and he still looks like a pretty solid pass rusher. I feel like for them to go pass rusher, they need to go value at pass rusher. They need to find someone who's in the last year of their deal. They need to find someone who hasn't quite hit their peak yet, or you know what I'm saying. I feel like edge. They've got Leonard Floyd. If they go and get another edge, I feel like it has to be someone that they think can still ascend and kind of realize their potential uh, with the 49ers. That's why, I mean, I just keep coming back to Azeez Ojulari. He seems like he fits all the criteria on his team. He isn't a starter. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. There's no guarantee that they're going to re-sign him because they just paid Brian Burns a huge figure. They're going to have to pay Kayvon Thibodeaux a huge figure. He's a pass rush specialist. You could get him for probably third, fourth rounder, maybe, and he could come in and he doesn't have to be an every down guy. He comes in, gets after the passer, rotates. Um, and again, you could either angle to sign him later or you let him go if he signs for a good big time contract. You can also potentially recoup a compensatory pick for him. So that to me, that mold, he just happens to fit all the criteria that fits like a cost effective move that makes sense for both, you know, the Giants, if that's the route they want to go, and for the 49ers. Now, they have a history. I don't know if the Giants would want to trade him or not. Um, but we'll see, man. We'll see what ultimately goes down in that regard. Um, my guy says he doesn't care about value. He wants a superstar. Well, they should have went and got my boy Brian Burns. My boy Brian Burns was available. It only took a second and a fifth round draft pick for Brian Burns. He was available. You could have had him. You could have had him. Oh, goodness. But that ship has sailed. So let's go on to another member of the Hive. Oh man. But honestly, I think there's a couple positions because we've talked a lot about defensive line. I think that I agree with this. Evan Anderson is playing really well. And I do think Kevin Givens is playing really well. Malik Collins is playing well. I think our defensive line is actually playing pretty good, all things considered. Um, I do think, all things considered, they're playing better than anticipated. Uh, but I do think that if you could get an additional piece to throw into that rotation without Hargrave coming back, that would be a good spot to add. Obviously, if they add at linebacker, I don't know if they add at linebacker because I I, I gotta assume that they're holding out for Dre Greenlaw to return. So if Drake Greenlaw's coming back, then I don't think you make any dramatic moves at linebacker. I think you continue to develop D. Winters. You continue to develop Jalen Graham, who's now back on the roster. You continue to work with guys like Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. And then when Dre's back, hopefully you're good. You're ready to roll. You don't got to worry about it there. I think Renardo Green obviously is an ascending player. So at cornerback, you've got Mooney Ward, you got Deommodore Lenoir. You also have Green, who I think should be playing more. Um, especially with that performance that he had against Seattle. I think Renardo proved that he deserves more playing time, and he can handle the moment. So I would like to see more Renardo out there. That would be fire. Malik Mustafa, I think, has proven to be pretty darn solid early on, just dealing with a little bit of a banged up situation right now. And we'll see. Talanoa Hufanga's on injured reserve. Um, so the 49ers did go veteran route with the safety. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they're pretty good with where they're at safety. I think if they could retool a position group, I think it would be the defensive line. I think if they could add some additional help, whether edge or interior, I think they would. Um, I mean, if you could get Jeffrey Simmons, let me take a look at his SPO track really quick because I believe he's already signed. I believe he already signed his extension. I could be mistaken because I don't follow the Titans that closely. But let's see what his SPO track is looking like. Oh yeah, he signed. He signed a 4. Ooh, oh, he signed a 4-year, $94 million contract. Average salary is 23.5 million. Signing bonus was 24. Guaranteed at signing was 47.8. Total guarantees were near 60. Potential out in 2026. Dead cap hit for the Titans this year would be 41 million and then 20 million in 2025. So I think that kind of officially pushes Jeffrey Simmons into the that would be fun category. But yeah, that's a big contract to trade. That doesn't really look like it makes sense for either party, considering the dead cap that the Titans would take. And he does carry a $21 million cap hit, which the 49ers can absorb this season, but that rolls into a $22.8 million cap hit next year. So Jeffrey Simmons, we need to find the younger version of Jeffrey Simmons. We need to find the Jeffrey Simmons who hasn't been paid yet. We need to find that guy in the third, fourth year of his rookie deal. That to me feels like the sweet spot for how you can maneuver a trade for a player of quality that you can get a value on and could still be an ascending player that you could also potentially pay as well. I can't think of any of those names. Let me go back to the free agent list for next year. I really don't think there are a bunch when we're talking about defensive tackle that kind of fit that mold. But if we're looking at the defensive tackle free agents, that's kind of where I've been starting, is just looking at who's going to be a free agent next year and then kind of reverse engineering it. Like Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat with the Philadelphia Eagles, he will be a free agent next year. However, will the Eagles be willing to trade him first of all and be willing to eat a $24 million dead cap hit? I don't think so. I don't think they'd be willing to trade him to the 49ers, considering what they've got going back and forth. A name that we've talked about, BJ Hill, he will be a free agent at the end of this season. Well, he has a potential out in 2024, so they could void his contract after this season. He does carry a $10 million cap hit and a nearly $14 million cap hit for the Bengals. So that would be an interesting one if they would make that move. But I think they would have to be fully out of it in order to make that. If we look at DJ Jones has a opt out after this season. He carries a cap hit of nearly 13 million, and his dead cap hit would be around 16 for the Denver Broncos. So we'll see. We'll see if they'd be willing to move off that contract or not. When you're looking at other names, Javon Kinlaw is going to be a free agent. There's not a lot. There's not a lot that really fit that mold that we're looking for. Not a lot of names that are jumping off this list that are super, super enticing. Yeah, there's just not a lot out there. I'm looking. Yeah. Joseph Osai, if you want some edge depth that's still young, maybe. I don't know. Oh man, if you could get Aleem McNeil from Detroit, that's not happening. But that would be nice. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. You maybe try to get Tier Tart from the Chargers. So Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens. So we'll see. We'll see what the 49ers do. We'll see what the 49ers do. But at the end of the day, I think the 49ers should be buyers. I think the 49ers are positioning themselves to go on a run. I think they're positioning themselves to kind of stack some momentum. There's no bigger momentum game coming up than this one against the Chiefs. If you get this one against the Chiefs, you get the monkey off the back. I think that obviously changes the early dynamic of the season pretty dramatically. I've seen people say that this game doesn't matter, against the Chiefs. Like it's just another game. It's an AFC opponent. Doesn't matter. I disagree. I really do think that this is a big time game. Like I think when the 49ers got their they got their schedules, I think they went straight to the Chiefs and they circled that bad boy and they said, "Oh yeah, we got the Chiefs again. Where are they at? All right, at home, October 20th. Let's ride." Like I really do think that this is a huge game for the 49ers. Spiritually, from a momentum standpoint, from a mindset standpoint, this is a monkey off the bat game. This is like you gotta get beyond this team just to prove to yourself that you can beat this team. That's really what it comes down to. The 49ers could have beat the Chiefs in multiple different games, and I'm not going to go into detail of those games, but they could have. They didn't. Could have doesn't count. Could have doesn't give you what you want. Could have doesn't do so. It's not an excuse. I'm just saying they have the ability to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are hurt too. The Chiefs offensive line, a little sketchy. I'm hoping that they start their rookie tackle Kingsley Suamataia because I think that Nick Bosa would absolutely destroy him. I want them to put that guy out there. I want them. They don't have a number one real wide receiver currently. Both Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown on IR. Uh, Their tight end looks like a shell of himself. Obviously, that doesn't mean he won't step up and play big in a big time moment against the 49ers, but 100% what Eric says. This is from a psychological standpoint. This is a huge game. This is just one of those. It's like a mental hurdle more than it is a physical hurdle. You have to get past this Chiefs team for your soul, for your mental health. This is a mental health game for not only the 49ers players, but for the 49ers fan base. It's just, you got to get past this team. You got to beat them. I was at that game in 2022. That was the first game of Christian McCaffrey after being traded to the 49ers, I believe on that Friday. He suited up for the game against the Chiefs on that Sunday. It was alumni weekend. You had the 2012 49ers roster there. Jim Harbaugh was there. The vibes were insane pre-game. When I think back to that game, the 2022 matchup versus the Chiefs, I can't think of a more like electric buzz in the air because they had just traded for Christian McCaffrey. You had all the alumni walking around. It was the energy was intense. And they started the game off playing Tony Montana, and you saw the entire 2012 squad, Boobie Dixon, all of them going crazy on the sideline. The energy to start that game was crazy. And then the Chiefs hit you with 3 end arounds to Mecole Hardman for 3 touchdowns. And I think you had like a safety in the end zone or something like that. It just kind of spiraled. It was close at halftime and then it just spiraled. So that was actually also the first time that we saw Brock Purdy play an NFL game, was that week as well. But we also know the games that really count where the 49ers haven't been able to get it done. So it's a big one. It's a big one. It's a big one mentally. That's what it is. It's the boogeyman. Whether you like it or not, this is a 49ers. This is the 49ers boogeyman right here. It's the Chiefs. They're the reasons why they're the ones that are standing in the way of the 49ers being 7-time world champions right now. They're our boogeyman. So big game this week. If they can get this one, whoo, the energy will be through the roof on this one. When you talk about momentum heading into the season, momentum heading into Dallas, I'm getting hyped just thinking about it. If you guys were watching my streams last week, I was pretty hyped up about this Seahawks game. Like I was in locking into football mode where like I was getting energized. I was getting pumped just because of how much that game meant and how much they needed to win that one. I'm getting the same feeling thinking about this Chiefs game, just thinking about how locked in everyone needs to be and just really thinking about how this game does so much for the soul, does so much for the heart, the mentality. This is beyond the X's and O's. This is beyond who's stronger, bigger, faster than the other person. This is about heart. This is about momentum. This is about who wants it more. The same things that we talked about last week against Seattle, the same things apply here. This is an identity. It's another identity game. What team are you? Who are you? Are you a team that can beat the Chiefs? Let's go do it. Let's go do it. 0-4 against the Chiefs under Kyle Shanahan's tenure. Can you beat the Chiefs? Well, you've got to prove it now. I don't care. People are going to say, oh, the Chiefs they're hurt. They're not the same. They're not playing as good. They're one of 2 undefeated teams in the league. They're coming into Levi Stadium undefeated with an undefeated record to protect. Not only can we give them their first L of the season, but we can break free from the kind of cloud that has hung over our heads when it comes to playing this team. And that's why this is a big one. So what I'm proud of is how the 49ers responded against Seattle. And so that gives me faith that they will take that same energy, that same mentality, that same drive, and they will put it into this week against Kansas City. Obviously, we've seen the 49ers up and down this year. We've seen them play good. We've seen them play bad. We've seen them play both. This is a big one. This is a big game. Again, it might not be big in the sense of it's just an AFC team, this, that, and the other thing. It's not an NFC opponent. It's not an NFC West opponent. Does it really matter in the seeding? Oh, it matters. It matters if we want to play in the Super Bowl. It matters. It matters. So, got to get this one for sure. Let's see. We'll see if the San Francisco 49ers make any moves. We'll see if the 49ers get active and they make any trades. It'll be interesting to see I wouldn't put it past John Lynch. John Lynch has been he has been very aggressive when it comes to adding talent, adding depth, and continuing to add pieces to this roster. Again, they had to convince Kyle Shanahan to get Christian McCaffrey. It's one of my favorite stories. They're like, Kyle was like, it's too expensive for Christian McCaffrey. And they're like, so you want him to go to the Rams? They're like, no, we're going to trade for him. And then, Kyle's like, all right. I think that was a good move. So, that to me gave me faith that John Lynch is going to be aggressive in hitting the phone, seeing who's available, getting a player that can help them, that won't hurt them in the future. So big week. Big week. So I don't believe the 49ers practice today. So tomorrow we'll be on practice update watch. Obviously, we want to keep an eye on a couple players. We want to keep an eye on Jordan Mason, Malik Mustafa, Ricky Pearsall, obviously practicing yesterday, which was really, really cool to see him back out there. So you love to see that. So we don't know if Ricky will be up for this game against the Chiefs. But what I just talked about with all like the energy and the momentum, that feels like a great game to bring him up for. That feels like a great game to be able to kind of inject even more juice into that one, just because we know fans are going to be so hyped to see Ricky Pearsall make his debut. Again, he was injured all preseason before he got shot. So he hasn't stepped on the field in his full red and gold gear. And so when he steps onto that field, it's going to be the first time. And I think it's going to be an electric feeling. I think that 49er fans, appreciate what he's gone through. Obviously, it was a tough situation, but I think they recognize how difficult of a situation that was, and for him to be able to come out on the other side, it's going to be a strong emotional kind of situation when you see that. I mean, when they honored, I think it was Lieutenant or Sergeant Farrell. Or Sergeant Harrell, I believe was her name, at the game. It was emotional moment, moving moment. So I think if you get Ricky back out there, I think that would be fantastic. I think that would just be and especially if you got him one, you got him a little slant, takes it to the house. Bro, come on, man. Energy would be through the roof. I would love to see that. But we'll see. Any other updates, you already know I'm going to update them. I'll bring them to you as soon as I get them. Shout out to all you guys for tapping in. Appreciate you. Make sure to like and subscribe. And again, if you guys are going to the game, make sure you tap in with TickPick. Use my promo code SF9ers. Get up to $25 off when you use the app. Already the best tickets in the game, but you can get even better price when you use promo code SF9ers. Appreciate you guys. Grab your cookies on the way out. Y'all are the best. Smash that like button on your way out. Appreciate you guys. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.